Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me as he does every single week, Grape Viney. Good evening, Grape Viney. How are you?
I'm excellent, Andy.
Now,
thank you very much.
Now, we had a big weekend. Both of us travelled up to the Gold Coast and then to Brisbane to watch our beloved D's play. Is there any truth to the rumour that you remain behind and still do to assist Clarry Oliver in going number ones after he was left behind in Queensland?
You're close, but no cigar, Andy. I actually, they did nab Clayton for a drug test, and I got nabbed in the same way. They're trying to test me too. And as you know, we spent the weekend ingesting and imbibing and consuming all manner of substances. So I've been holding on to my wee-wees for 4 days now, actually. So I haven't gone. I'm hoping it'll clear the system before they test me and find out what we got up to.
So for those of you who do not know, Clayton Oliver had to do a random drug test after the game. They do choose a number of players after each game, I think from both teams, randomly, I assume, and he couldn't go number ones at the time. I think he could go, but I think he only filled up 90 mil or 90% of whatever they test for, and he had to wait until he was able to provide a sample for them, and in turn missed the bus and then missed the plane back to Melbourne and had to stay overnight and come back the next day. Yes. I mean, you don't hear that often.
There's a bit of an issue with that, and I think people raised it in the thread. I mean, doesn't this potentially impact on his recovery and the club's plans for the team? I find it a bit strange that they can force someone to stay interstate effectively. It wouldn't be such an issue, obviously, if we're in Melbourne, but I think that there's merit to that argument.
But what scientifically, I don't know how it all works, and a few people in that thread we had on Demonland talking about this issue. I mean, what scientifically can they take a blood test instead? Is a urine test the next day still going to be able to detect any of the substances that they are testing for? Do you know what the answer to any of those questions are?
I don't. No,
okay.
No, I'm not a rocket scientist and not a drug scientist either, so I can't answer that. Maybe if there's an expert out there among the listeners, they can either call in or post a response in the chat room.
Well, I will give people the numbers and ways to do that, to contact us. If you do want to join us in the conversation tonight and talk about anything, including the Clayton Oliver drug test. If you are a drug scientist, we'd welcome your call. That's 03 9016 3666. That's 03 9016 3666. Or if you've got Skype, just look up Demonland 31 and you can contact us that way. We've also got a live chat room. If you go to demonland.com/podcast, you can join in the conversation, ask us a question, and we are happy to answer it. So they're the ways you can contact us. What a win.
And look, when we refer to drug scientists, we're not talking about all those Demonlanders with backyard meth labs looking for something a bit more scientific than that. So, don't call in with your recipes.
We maybe you can just email us on the sly. So we went up to Brisbane. We were amongst 6,060 fans there, and I must say we were probably outnumbered the Suns fans there. Would you say 3-1? 2-1.
For sure.
It seemed like there were no Suns fans there, and it was all Demons. So it was, in effect, it was almost like a home game for us in terms of having the crowd on your side. It doesn't bode well, I don't think, for the state of football certainly on the Gold Coast. And I don't know. Do you think the Suns are going to be around, in 10 years' time?
Well, it depends, I guess, how long the AFL will keep bankrolling them. The history of Gold Coast sport is littered with corpses, basically. Teams just don't survive here. Good question. And the same question could be asked of the Giants in Western Sydney. And I know that there have been suggestions that they should move to Canberra, perhaps, where there's a much greater football following. So, it doesn't help that they haven't had their home stadium, Metricon Stadium, for this first part of the season. So, in a way, we did play a very depleted Gold Coast team. They've had to travel the length and breadth of the country in these opening rounds, and that's a huge disadvantage.
And they're travelling the continent, not the continent, they're travelling the world this week, so that's not going to help them either. But you'd think with very little success so far, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. And if they lose Lynch out of that team, they're in a lot of trouble. But we're not here to talk about the Gold Coast Suns and their fortunes. We're here to talk about the D's. Who impressed you the most, would you say, out of our guys this week?
Oh, look, it's a bit of a tough call. There were plenty of good players. I think you need to acknowledge the efforts of Tommy McDonald. Probably faded a bit as the game went on, but he certainly got the score on the board early when the rest of the team was struggling to convert and make the most of our inside 50s. Tommy Mac was able to put the score on the board early, so full marks to him. Max Gawn continued his outstanding season, and I know we'll talk about him in a moment, and his presence in the Coaches Association awards and various media awards, and probably figuring pretty well in Brownlow calculations at this stage.
Yeah.
And the man that we've already spoken about, Clarence Oliver, again also continued his fine season. So they were probably the top three, and look, the backline continued their great form too. Michael Hibberd, Nev Jetta, and Jake Lever, as well as Oscar. Yep.
I must say, one of the most impressive things over the last few weeks has been sort of our backline starting to gel, and we've been talking about Oscar all year. He's been great. He's sort of beaten everyone he's been on. Hibberd is now starting to regain some of that All-Australian form off the halfback. Jets is regaining his should-have-been All-Australian form last year. And Lever's, he's taking, showing so much guts in jumping back and taking marks and doing everything that was the whole reason we chased him hard. Our back six is looking good, and, that's going to benefit us going forward.
And look, one name we've left out, and you and I certainly discussed it on the day, was Jordan Lewis.
Yes.
Who, in our opinion, probably played his best game for the club. It was sort of back to the Jordan Lewis of old, wasn't it? Really at his very best on the weekend. So a real general across halfback, and did some good defensive work, and also provided some great drive off halfback too. So good to see him finding his very best form again.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the best game I think I've seen him play for the D's, and hoping to see a bit more of that, over the coming year and hopefully into next year. A player who, on the night, I sort of didn't take a lot of notice of, and he certainly got a lot of the ball and had probably his best game for the D's, was James Harms. And I think the reason I didn't notice him, we sat sort of quite close to the fence. We usually, both of us, sit at least one level up, which is where I generally like to watch the game from, sort of get to see more of the field, and you sort of notice a bit more from there. But he had 33 disposals. I think 18 of those were contested possessions. He was involved in, I thought I read somewhere, a dozen score involvements. He had, according to these stats, 6 clearances and 6 tackles. Certainly his best game for the club.
Yeah. Look, we both overlooked him a bit on the day, didn't we? We were a bit surprised looking at the stats later. That he'd racked up such big numbers. But, good on him, getting very involved. And we should also mention another one who I thought played really well was Angus Brayshaw, who continues his excellent work in the middle. Plenty of clearances again. It's good stuff.
And both of them, looking at the stats, were extremely wasteful in front of goals. Harms kicked 0 goals, 3 behinds, and Brayshaw has 1 goal, 3 behinds. So certainly they could have been a lot more deadly, but it wasn't just them that were missing the big sticks. We had quite a few players. Melksham kicked 1 goal, 3. And we were watching him, or I had my eye on him in the pre-game. From what I saw, he had about 6, 7 or 8 shots at goal and missed every single one of them. And it was just one of those nights for him, because usually he is a dead eye in front of goals, and he's one of those players that you want to have ball in hand having a shot, but he just couldn't find the sticks on the night.
He's been a bit wayward the whole year, hasn't he? He had a couple of good weeks. I'm just having a look now. He's got 7-12 for the season so far. So you're right, though. He missed every shot in the warm-up, and it then carried through to the game. Harms isn't great in front of goal. I'm not particularly confident when he's got the ball in hand. Look, we finished with 20-21. And look, it could easily have been, 30 goals, 11, really. So a big win and a high score, but probably could have been an even bigger win and an even greater score, really.
Well, we broke the league record since they've been taking inside 50 stats. We equalled the record, which is very impressive. But we've got to be able to convert those inside 50s into more goals. And as you said, we could have easily had 31 goals and really smashed them. But it's impressive the amount of inside 50s that we had. So yes, that was great.
Don't make me angry. He's just posted in the chat room that the league average is 50%, sort of scoring at 50% from your inside 50s, which is what we had, 41 scoring shots from the 83 entries. So if that stat is correct, we were about on the mark. But you'd like to see a greater conversion rate. If you're going to get the ball inside 50 so often. But,
we're talking more about conversion rates from behinds to goals, not necessarily inside 50s into scoring shots, which obviously you'd like to do anyway, but our wayward kicking in front of goals, lucky it didn't impact the result at all and didn't get close to it, but you don't want to be having a shocker like that in terms of, your goal versus behind percentage against a team that you come close to. So hopefully we can straighten up a bit in front of goals. The impressive thing was that they
kicked away with it in the last quarter. I think we outscored them by 6 goals, 8 goals to 2. So, we took a 5.5 goal lead and turned it into an 11 goal lead, an 11 goal victory. So, Demonlanders have been complaining that we didn't put away Essendon or St Kilda, so it was good to finally do the business against the Suns.
Yeah, it was great to run away with it. In the end, we've been begging for that, so we finally got it, and let's hope it continues on into next week. I was really impressed with Jesse Hogan again. I think he kicked all 3 of his goals in the last quarter, but one of the stats that I saw during the week was his total distance covered. He ran nearly 17 kilometres throughout the game, which was the high. And for such a big guy, his tank is just so impressive. And, he was saying it all during the pre-season, how he was training well. And, I mean, what a beast he is.
Look, that distance is extraordinary for a key position player. And I think it was sort of pointed out in the Incredible Hulk Jesse Hogan thread by Destroy All, who said that it was probably his worst game for the year. Not a bad game, but just not as good as his others, but still finished with 22 touches, eight marks, and then, as you say, the 3 goals which he got in the final quarter. So if that's a quiet game, then
you'd take that any day of the week, I think.
You'd really take that any day of the week, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And look, Tommy Mack is also covering a lot of ground, so the mobility of Jesse and Tommy is causing headaches. It will cause headaches for any opposition, basically. It's hard enough keeping up with one of them, let alone 2 of them. So it's a huge weapon in our arsenal.
Well, we talk about the big 4. Earlier in the year we were sort of talking, can we play Jesse, Tommy Mack, and at the time it was Pedersen and Max all in the same team. Well, we've substitute Pedersen for Wiedemann, and even though Wiedemann was a little bit quiet in terms of his output, just having the big guy there, a lot of people on Demonland after the match were saying that Wiedemann's got to go out of the team, but the coach firmly said that the big 4 is there to stay. What are your thoughts on that? Do we persist with Wiedemann even though he's being a bit quiet, or just having him in there, allowing Tommy Mack and Jesse to go further up the field, and when someone comes onto the bench for a rest, you got the big man there, another big man down there.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt it's working in the team sense and in terms of the structure, and as you say, freeing up Jesse and Tommy to do their stuff further upfield. But look, he was quiet, involved in a few goal assists, and I saw from his relatively few possessions, there was that nice setup for Spargo in the first quarter, yep. I think. And look, he's going all right in the ruck. And of course, I think we should persist with him. The plan, I would have thought long term, is for the big 4 to keep playing. Max is obviously going to keep rucking, but I think, Simon, this is how he sees the future. And if he doesn't, then we've got one too many, don't we? Unless they're planning on getting rid of one of Hogan, McDonald or Wiedemann, as I say, this is the future, so it should be the present too. So I'm quite happy for him to stay in the team, and he might come out on a very wet day if the football department decide to go small. But I would have thought he's going to stay in the team from here on in, and that this is the long-term plan of the coach.
Yeah, D Old Fart in the chat room has put the question of Spargo versus Jeffy. At the moment, Spargo's going all right. He didn't have a heap of possessions this weekend. Still managed to kick 2 goals. Hannon, the other small guy, had 17 possessions, and I didn't realise Hannon had 17 possessions, but he bobbed up for 3-3 as well. So it's going to be hard for Jeffy to get... I love Jeffy. I think he can be, and I think Super Mercado said it last week, he can just turn it on, Jeffy, and provide such spark. But, the guys that have replaced him at the moment are playing all right and, hitting the scoreboard. And that's, for a small forward, that's what you want. You want them to be... You want them to be in there providing some defensive pressure as well as kicking goals, and that's what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, and then that pressures Jeffy back in the twos to lift his game, because if he wants to replace either Spartacus or,
yes.
which we must credit to another D fan that was sitting near us on the weekend. We were taken by that name, and we'll keep using it perhaps. But it's an interesting one, and I would be interested to see the changes this week and whether Jeffy does get a Guernsey back in the ones, because I think from all reports he did play pretty well for Casey on the weekend. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about Casey a bit later on, and we've got sort of a rundown of every player for the D's listed player that played, so we'll go through that a bit later. But I believe Jeffy played quite a bit in the middle on the weekend, so if he does replace Spargo, I would say it would only be to rest Spargo and sort of just manage him a little, but he's certainly doing some nice things and he's kicking goals, so... good on him. I really like him, but I love Jeffy too. So, I'd love to see Jeffy get unleashed against the Blues, his old team.
Yeah, it's tempting, isn't it? And he'd love to kick a bag against them. So, tough call.
It is a tough call. Well, we might...
It's a tough call to... Obviously, Viney's going to come back in, and we'll talk about changes a bit later. But it's a tough call to... drop someone from a team that's won by 11 goals. So if Spartacus does make way for Jeffy, then it's a bit of a tough call, isn't it?
Salem came back into the side. Was Salem back? He was back in this.
Yep.
I knew he was back in, but he missed last week. I thought he was great as well. Really adding a lot to that midfield, and came up with a couple goals himself.
Yeah. Was he? I think he was playing more half back rather than midfield, but yeah, he did
sort of running through. On a game sort of where we had the ascendancy. It was all over the place, and copped one in the back as well late in the game.
That was a bit nasty, wasn't it?
Yeah, I also thought the hit on
close to reportable almost.
Well, it was quite late, I thought. So I think if someone's gonna take a mark and then someone else is going to come in very late, it's very close to a reportable offence. But whether you get rubbed out one week and not the next, that's that's a week to week proposition with the match review panel. The player again this week that I think disappointed me the most was Tyson. I thought I wasn't wrapped with his game on the weekend. I thought he was wayward in some of his kicking, and it's been a sore point of mine and a few other Demon Landers. And I don't know, when we talk about changes, his name might come up to be replaced, but. I don't know if any other Demon Landers want to call in and give your thoughts on the game or any particular players. 0390163666. That's 90163666. And you can Skype us Demonland31 or jump in the chat room, demonland.com/podcast. And you can ask a question of us that way. I think pretty much gone over everyone in the team. I don't think we mentioned Jonesy, but Jonesy's Jonesy, and he just keeps doing the Jonesy things. Fritsch as well. I didn't mention him. He had 20. You realise he had 26 possessions on the weekend. Played, and I've noticed they're sort of playing him. Played him on the wing a little bit,
Yep.
and he played he pops up in the back line a little bit, and I don't mind that as well because he's got a beautiful kick, and him streaming down the wing, kicking into our forward line is, when you've got someone with such great skills, it's good to see.
Yeah, look, it continues Goodwin's theme of flexibility and versatility and players being able to excel in a number of positions. His development continues, and he's really tracking very well at the moment. Fritzl, so good luck to him to continue on that way.
And we touched on it briefly. You mentioned that Maxi has climbed up into equal second in the Coaches' Votes Awards. Can't talk more highly of Maxi. I've been saying it for a few weeks now. If he continues on this, I think he's going to get very deep into Brownlow night. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but he'll definitely be up there, I think. The guy just stands out, and I think he can attract a lot of votes. And if we keep winning and win enough games, then he'll definitely be up there. And well done, Maxi, on being up there with the Coaches' Votes Awards, and it's mostly midfielders, so well done.
Yeah, it's somebody posted in that thread, I believe, that one of the bookies is still offering $26.
Yeah, I read that.
On Max. That's good money, considering the start to the season he's had. So if you're that way inclined, jump on it. Absolutely.
I think because it's just such a midfielders award these days, and it's been a long time since a ruckman won it. I think it'd be back to probably Scott Wind, or was there one after him?
Yep.
I don't know, but not many ruckmen win it these days, so maybe that's why the bookies aren't getting onto him. But it's an interesting one. He still is leading the Demonland Player of the Year award, followed by Clarry, who caught up a little bit to him on the weekend, and then Jesse, Nathan Jones, and now Salem replaced Oscar McDonald for the 5th spot. So that's the state of the Demonland Player of the Year.
Yeah, and I think I think the Demonlanders have got it pretty right so far. I'd say that those 6, Gawn, Oliver, Hogan, Jones, Salem and Oscar, that's probably about how it should be at the moment. So, and I must add, on the money.
I must add that last couple of weeks, Brayshaw has shot up the list. He's in equal 8th position, and Tommy McDonald is just behind him. So they continue to be, getting votes. Jack Viney's got a long way to climb back up, but no doubt in a couple of weeks he may be in there. We'll move on to the Casey game. Unfortunately, Drunken 167 is working tonight, so he can't call in with his view on the game, because he does go to every single Casey game. But we had quite a few Demonland followers venturing out to Casey to watch the Jack Viney show. So, we have a report from there. Where I've just got to pull this up.
It was Vogan Poetry, I think, who... Yeah. Look, there were a few good reports there, but probably the most comprehensive was the one supplied by VP.
Yeah, I think I've pulled up the wrong. I think I pulled up the wrong post from Vogon, so I will look at it in a second. I will go dig it up. What did you think? From what you've heard, what were they saying about Viney?
By all accounts, he played pretty well. I think he was at about 70% game time he had.
Yeah.
Only the 18 touches, although that's not bad for 70% game time. But apparently there was a very hard tag on him. But by all reports, he was a cut above the rest, and So, look, he's done what he had to do, and he will absolutely be back in the seniors this week, and can't wait to see him. And it might take him a week or two, but to sort of build back to his best form. But a bit like Tommy McDonald coming back a few weeks ago, Viney will really enhance our output. So can't wait.
Yeah, so are you a definite he's going to play this week?
Yes. Yeah, well, Goodwin had virtually said before the weekend that, barring a catastrophe, that Viney was going to play this week. So Jack himself said that he felt great after the game, 100%. Not a flicker of doubt in his mind as to how he's feeling. So... he's ready to go.
I'm still having trouble finding the post I was looking for. I'll take this opportunity while I'm still searching for it to give you the numbers. If you here it is. His Vogon Poetry said Jack Viney said he had the first clearance of the match and the kick was just great to see. He was harder and faster around the stoppages than anyone else and did a lot of the grunt stuff. Looked in good touch and was generally very clean and kicked the ball well when he got the opportunity. But, he was heavily tagged for 3/4, so he didn't find much space. But that's what you would expect from Viney. So, I'm happy to say that put him straight in. Billy Stretch was another one that sort of impressed. They didn't play him on the wing; he played on the ball. And Vogon says he did it very well. Found the ball regularly, had clean hands, and pretty good decision making. So that's good. He said it's a lot of promising signs, but a long way to go. And I think it's going to be hard for Billy to get back into the first. But if he keeps playing like that, then he might see some action.
Look, I was pleased to read that because he's been struggling for a long time now, Billy Stretch, going back into last year. So if nothing else, it's good for his confidence to have a great game, get his hands on the footy a bit. So. Pleased to hear that, even though he might not necessarily first cab off the rank to get a Guernsey just yet in the senior team, but at least he's back on the road, which is good to hear.
I'd say at the moment he's probably there, for depth. We have a string of injuries and stuff. But if he keeps playing like that, he may just get his chance in the one. So, well done to him. Frosty apparently played a solid game with some good contested marking at times, a bit of dash, and continued to do what he does. Still prone to silly mistakes, but was a good contributor on the day. Pedersen, another one that's, It depends. I think they're going to go with Wiedemann, but he's obviously the Wiedemann backup at this stage. Vogon said he was full of fumbles in the first half, but stuck at it and played better as the game went on. A great mark in the second quarter, good contributor. Played as a key position forward and a relief ruck. The other one I'm interested to look at is Jaden Hunt. Vogon says poor old Jayden looked bereft of confidence and really struggled to find the ball and get involved. He just needs to start and try and enjoy his footy again and concentrate on the basics. We all know what he can do, but didn't do it yesterday. And that upsets me a lot, not because Demonland sponsors Jayden, but, last year I thought Jayden's going to be a certain starter, first 22 picked week in, week out, and it just looks like his confidence is shot at the moment. And if his confidence also shot in the twos, it's not looking good at the moment for him getting back into the team. So, let's hope that he finds some form, because he's not going to get back in without that.
Nope, you're right.
Jeffy Garlett, I think, he's probably one to look at, because there's the possibility that they'll rest one of the young forwards at some stage. What Vogon said, he said it's hard to appreciate how quick he is unless you see it at close hand, and it's hard to understand how he can see options in a sea of players as quickly as he does. But he does, and was a clear cut above this level yesterday, although he didn't get a lot of it. He applied pressure and provided options yesterday, as well as spending some time on ball. Reality is he's a cut above Spargo at the moment, and Vogon said that's no criticism of Spargo. So I guess his selection will come down to how he's playing his role and whether Goody wants him back. But he will get back, and he is our best 22 when he's going. And, yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
Although I've been very impressed with Spargo, I think Jeff is probably above him, but Spargo's kicking goals and, doing all the right things at the moment. So it just depends on whether they're going to rest Spargo or and give Jeffy a go. So
I would have thought he's going to need a rest at some stage. He hasn't done the pre-seasons, hasn't got the miles into the legs that Jeffy has. Over a long career, so at some point it's going to happen. I don't think Spargo will see out the rest of the year in the ones. He's going to need to go back and have a spell at some stage, and it'll be interesting to see, as we sort of said before, just when that happens. But look, good to hear Jeffy's obviously doing all the right things at Casey, which is good. He hasn't gone back to Sook or anything like that. He's copped it on the chin, and is obviously putting in the hard yards and doing what he can to put his name in front of the selectors.
Yeah, and I think Spargo will get his opportunity. If he does get dropped, he'll get an opportunity to get back into the team, and very happy with the report from that game, because we were playing an unbeaten team. This is the Casey game, good to see. Good to see that happen.
Tim Smith apparently in very good form too.
Yeah, so I'll read what he said about Tim Smith. I've watched Tim over a long period now, and he's played some good games, and I've never thought he had AFL attributes until yesterday. He was fantastic, strong in the air, strong on the ground, and found plenty of it. He's not called bull for nothing, and for the first time yesterday I thought he could really play AFL footy. Great game. Now, Drunken 167's been saying this for weeks. I've read him, saying it every single week. He said it on this podcast. Here's a possibility to come in for if they do want to, if Wiedemann doesn't make the cut. Here's a possible replacement for him, and I think we'll see Tim Smith at some point in the coming weeks, particularly if he plays like they said he played.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, Wiedemann rucks, and that's the one thing he can do that Bull can't. Look, he can't do more than what he's doing at the moment. Whether that translates into an opportunity in the ones at some stage, we'll have to wait and see, I guess, on the form of others. But he has spent time in the midfield, I think, as well during the year. So again, that might appeal to Goodwin's penchant for flexibility and versatility. So watch this space.
I must say that when I was talking about replacing Wiedemann, I did forget that he is our backup ruck at the moment, so I guess that's where Wiedemann's where his CV sort of matches or betters someone like Tim Smith. Yeah, you're right. Unless Tommy Mack goes back in the ruck, but I don't think they want to go down that route because I don't think I've seen Tommy take a ruck contest since he's been back. So,
I wonder whether is that to protect his feet,
possibly,
or is it just that he's doing so well where he currently is, and we've got Wiedemann, and Wiedemann's sort of tracking all right in the ruck at the moment. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, well, he had 6 hit-outs, but I think it's just about having a big body in the ruck for those contests. So I'm sure he'll get better. And their ruckman was an absolute monster. He was a big guy. So
Look, people need to get over this. Some people are still calling for Peterson to replace Wiedemann in the ones. That is not going to happen. Peterson is not going to play again unless there are injuries. Yeah. And people sort of go back to his form last year, but they ignore the fact that Peterson's best footy last year was when Gawn and Hogan were out, and he was the main man. And they forget that when Gawn and Hogan were back in those few games that Peterson played, it didn't work. McDonald, Hogan and Peterson didn't work as a forward combo. So people need to get over, you and I were big fans of Peterson and still are big fans of Peterson. He's not going to die wondering, that's for sure. And we know that if he does get an opportunity, he'll clasp it with both hands. But he's a spare parts man at the moment, and as I say, he's only going to come back in if there are injuries like there were last year.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I do like Pedersen. I love the work he did last year. He was fantastic. But you're right. When those guys did come back, it didn't work, and it did certainly. We were playing at that time. I think we were playing Tommy Mack and Hogan sort of in the forward 50. But I think it's working well this year with Wiedemann. At the moment, it allows one of the two, of Hogan and McDonald, to go up the ground. If Peterson was in the mix, he would be in the team. And clearly the coaching staff are persisting with Wiedemann. So it'll be interesting to see Wiedemann. I reckon he'll get a game this week. Be interesting to see what happens, in the next few weeks after that, when we come up against Adelaide and some other teams before the bye. Well, talking about injuries, our injury list at the moment, thank Jack Viney, is almost it's empty. We've got a few players on there, but with the exception, I think, of maybe at the moment Dean Kent, who possibly could be getting a game, but we've got some good small forwards getting a game. And, Corey Maynard wasn't a certain starter, but was one of those guys that they were trying out. Other than that, there's, we've pretty much got a full complement. Definitely our best 22, our best 26 available to play. So, that hasn't happened for a while, and let's hope that continues. Now, we did see Tommy McDonald limp off the ground the other day. I haven't heard anything in terms of that, but he 100% limped off the ground. Didn't look like a severe injury, but maybe just rolled or something of his ankle, but he did limp off. You haven't heard anything?
No, there's no reference to it afterwards. Goodwin didn't mention it. No one asked about it in his presser, and there's been no reference to it. So I can only presume it was minor.
Yep.
And all's good.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard anything, so hoping for no surprises come selection. And, with such a small injury list, changes are only going to come through dropping someone, and there's a big change coming into the team. We've both said we reckon Viney's playing. Coach has basically said he's playing. Who comes out? Do we take out a big man, or I don't know? First of all, what's the weather forecast for the weekend? Well, it'll be cold no matter what.
I think it's meant to be. I think it's meant to be okay. I don't think they're forecasting. I don't think they're forecasting rain. So I'm just calling it up now.
As am I. This is
15 degrees. Slight chance of a shower. So no, look, they're I can only see them going small if it's they're predicting biblical weather conditions.
No, it's not. It's a rain. It's a 30% chance of 0 to 0.4 millimeters. So no, it's not. No, weather's not going to affect.
I'll go with the four talls.
Yep.
And I would have thought the outs. Nibbler was a bit better on the weekend than he has been.
He kicked
got a little bit of touchback.
Yeah, kicked 2 goals.
Missed an absolute sitter.
Yeah, but I think he's probably done enough to keep his spot. Let's just go back to the game for a moment, because there was one player I was a little bit disappointed with his game, and Christian Petracca. I don't know if it's still some, still because of his finger, but it's sort
of got rabies.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed that would have been a perfect game for him to just destroy an opposition, and I'm just, I thought he was a bit flat, and I'm waiting for, Christian Petracca to just burst onto the scene, and we know what he can do, but he's getting that consistency. It's not coming yet.
No, I'm not worried about it.
No, I'm not worried. I'm not losing sleep, but I'm waiting patiently.
Look, he has been quiet since coming back from the dog bite. And I think we've discussed this before, there are so many sort of options up forward that, if the opposition put their attention on keeping Petracca quiet, then Hannon's going to bob up for a few if they... it could well be that the opposition are putting a fair bit of work into him, and that's freeing up others to sort of do the finishing that he might otherwise do. But one thing that he's certainly struggling with this year is his goal kicking. I think we might have spoken about this last week.
And there was an article.
Last year he was a dead-eye Dick. And this year I think he's number 2 in the league.
Yeah, there was an article this week about
inaccuracy.
It's certainly just disappointing his accuracy in front of goal. But I think the focus at the beginning of the year was to play him in the middle, but I haven't seen him play much time in the middle the last few weeks, and I don't know if that was because of him being spending quite a bit of time in a hospital bed. While he had the dog bite. I would like to see him get back into the game and start impacting it a lot more, because he virtually had no impact this week.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting, the issue of him playing midfield minutes, because it's him sort of playing fewer minutes in the middle over the past few weeks has coincided with Gus spending more time in the middle. And look, that mix is going to change again now that Jack's back. So how that impacts Christian will be interesting to see.
I can't wait to see Jack back. I'm wondering, do you think they'll limit his game time in the ones?
Well, I guess it depends sort of how fit he is. But look, he's done a lot of running.
Yeah.
He's got the one match under his belt. So, I guess we'll know at the end of the game just how sort of prepared he was in terms of the minutes that he's allowed to play, minutes that he's able to play.
Well, opposition this week, the Blues now, they've got possibly 2 big returnees coming back. well, too big. The one really big one, they got Mark Murphy, who's listed as a test. From all reports, he will probably come back. Marchbank, the AFL site's saying 1 week, but I've seen places a test, and I think Wiedering's out at the moment. He's been playing in the twos, but you'd think they'd have to bring a guy like that back in to cover Jesse, Wiedemann, Tom McDonald. You'd think he'd be a shoo-in to return from the twos, and he's a quality young player, although his form hasn't been great, but he'll be back. And then there is... if you haven't heard the news about the Curnow brothers, the Blues brothers, as I've seen that headline far too many times this week. What do you think of that whole debacle? The two incidents, Charlie being the taller one, Ed being the smaller one. What did you think of the being referred to the match from the match review panel straight to the tribunal, and then the result of them both getting off with a fine, and then the appeal process, which will be heard tomorrow?
Well, debacle is the right word for it, as you say. Completely at odds with what happened to Tommy Hawkins last week. What I can't understand is, and most Demonlanders seem to be of this opinion, is that Ed's transgression was worse than Charlie's. I actually thought that out of the four, including Hawkins, I actually thought Charlie's is the worst out of all of them. His action was to stop the umpire from getting to the melee. And in being sort of cleared, they've effectively said that the player can dictate what's in the best interest of the umpire. I've just found that extraordinary that he got off. I actually thought, if anything, he deserved maybe 2 weeks, because since when does a player get to decide where an umpire goes and what he does? I thought Hawkins and Ed is sort of a bit of a lesser offence compared to that, and Mays was probably the least troublesome, because he was demonstrating what he was trying to do was demonstrate to the umpire what he thought had happened in the contest.
Yeah.
And if you want to see how farcical the whole situation is, he pleaded and got approved at sort of being that the contact was careless.
Yeah.
Well, careless is completely the wrong word to describe it. It was actually very deliberate. He was demonstrating to the umpire what had happened in the contest. Careless indicates that it's happened by accident. It wasn't by accident. He put his head into the umpire's chest to show what had just happened. So the whole thing is a joke. And I'd be very surprised if those decisions aren't overturned tomorrow in relation to the Blues brothers. And I think that the outrage that we've seen in the media and on Demonland is absolutely justified. So it'll be interesting to see what the decision is tomorrow.
Yeah, look, I was so surprised that they both got off, particularly with the Hawkins thing the week before. Hawkins was, I don't know the exact turn of events with that, but from what I heard, he was sort of told he'd get 2, and so he pleaded guilty, and it was put down to 1. So I thought, well, these guys have to get at least a week, or one of them, or whatever, and then to get off, I don't know. It just smells a bit funny. I'm not quite tinfoil hatting it and saying there's any conspiracy going on, but I'm not exactly not saying it. But it's ridiculous. And just the inconsistency from one week to the next and one decision. The free kicks from things that they're focusing on one week to the other. I mean, they've completely forgotten about that whole running past the mark rule. Whether you liked it or not, it's just ridiculous. From one week to the next, they're focusing on something else, and then they completely forget it. It's ridiculous. The rules. I know our game is unique, and there's a lot of interpretation when it comes to rules, but how they can focus on one thing one week and then ignore it the next, and it's just that to me, rather than anything else in our game that people are complaining about recently, is the thing that puts me off the most. I mean, I'm not to the point where I'm not going to go to the footy. That's certainly not not an option. But it's frustrating.
Do you think that the tribunal, it should be the same panel each time? Because obviously the three members who heard the Blues Brothers cases were different to the Hawkins panel. Should it be the same tribunal members each week?
I think so.
Perhaps, I think somebody suggested a couple of backups in case of
commitments,
unavailability or
Yep.
other commitments, illness, whatever it might be. But if we want consistency, we should really have the same tribunal each week, shouldn't we?
Yeah, and I was surprised as well. I read that last week they had a QC doing the prosecuting, and this week they had a junior janitor from. So no offence to the guy.
Someone in the first year of law school.
Yeah, they got someone out of what do you call it when you can't afford a lawyer and they get the one that you don't pay for.
Well, yeah, the pro bono
the pro
people.
bono. No, well, I apologise to that guy, but they had a lot, not a senior person prosecuting it, and I think a few people were upset about that, but. Look, we'll see what happens. Watch this space because it'll be interesting to see the next time, and I'm sure someone will touch an umpire again and what they do that time. But I think if someone does it going forward, they'll probably get in trouble. But I don't know. It's a funny precedent they set because the precedent 1 week is not the same as the next, and as I said, that's the most frustrating thing about it. All right,
Yep.
we'll move on. I thought there was an interesting post from a Demonland poster this week, a few days ago, Buck Naked, however you want to say it. And he just talked about the last few weeks, we've been playing weaker teams. And, I've seen a lot of people on social media and friends as well saying, who have Melbourne played? They haven't played anyone. Well, you can only beat who you put up against. And in the past, we probably would have dropped a couple of these games. And I think it shows that we are sort of getting on track and maturing as a team that we can put away beat these teams. Did you see the post I'm talking about?
Yep.
I might read a few of his points. He said, we turned up the game plan over the summer and the JLT showed us implement a version of it and we looked like top form material at that time. He said we played less than ideal footy and took the points in a couple of games. That's North Melbourne and Brisbane playing for 3 quarters with a defensive press way too high. Maxi wasn't hitting to advantage and we had a terrible inside 50 connections. We were slaughtered by the Hawks, which was a wake-up call. We played okay versus Richmond, a bit rushed early, but the third quarter was some of the toughest contested ball that he had ever seen in football for a while. So then we came to the few easy games in a row, and he said, the back six has started to work in these games. Lever's beginning to show some real skill, and Lewis now being, general-like. Jeddah rediscovering his form, and I'll add that Hibbard's also coming into a bit of form. T-Mac is back and building. Forward connection still needs work, but forward pressure is manic. The big four, meaning the big four forwards, had a couple of games to work together. The midfield is growing now with Salem and Angus getting in amongst it, and Viney's now about to return. So I think it's been good these 4 weeks against 3 weeks, and then we've got this week that they're really getting to start to play together. We're getting to build the strategy and the structure, and I think it's been a good thing having this period of playing some easier teams to get a bit of momentum, because we've got a big couple of weeks coming up before the bye, and I think we needed to just reset and things are starting to gel together. So let's hope it continues on past this week and leading up to the bye.
Yep, agree with all that. And it's been, I guess, a bit fortuitous, really. The absence of Viney and McDonald certainly impacted, on our form and capacity. So I guess we are a bit lucky that the draw has been the way it is, because we've certainly got a tougher back end of the home and away season than the beginning. So it's worked out okay so far.
I'll just read Bucknecked's his end to it, which is the point I was trying to get at, is this little period could be the making of this team. If we went straight into the harder contests with no trust in the game plan and each other, it could have been messy. It looks like these games have allowed us to just get it all together and sort of reset and practice again in match conditions, all the things that they were working towards over the summer. And it's definitely held us in good stead, going into the bye in the back half of the year, if we, having strung these good games together. But it's one thing doing it against weaker opposition. Now we've got to sort of show it against the better teams in the league, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we've still got a game to go this week. And we've got to get it. We've had trouble against Carlton in the past, last year, and even in the couple of years before that, they've given us a little bit of trouble. And can't take anyone lightly, but we've done the job against some weaker oppositions the last few weeks, and in the past we wouldn't have. So it's a new Demons outfit, and we also had this week another thread that I thought was quite interesting. Just about our backline and what's to come, because we've got we've got Lewis and Vince, who are getting on in age. What's Lewis? He's 32, soon to be 32. Vince is 33. Jeddah's 28. Jeddah's still got a bit of football left in him, you can tell. But the other two, over the rest of this year and going into next year, they're going to be slowing down and probably vacating the team, you would think. So who have we got coming back into the team? I think it's an interesting discussion. I think our forward line's pretty much set. Midfield, I think we're set. But the back line, we've got to keep sort of, as these two experienced players come out, who's to come up. Are you worried about our backs with what we've got to come in?
No, I actually thought, it's an interesting thread. I actually thought it was a bit sort of not premature.
Yeah, might be premature.
Perhaps a bit overdone. Nev is not close to finishing. He's still at the peak of his powers and has got more than a few years left. Lewis and Bernie are obviously a bit closer to the end of their careers, but I'd be more concerned if it was key defenders who were coming to the end of the careers, whereas really our key defenders are basically at the very start of their careers. In terms of Oscar and Lever, and Hibbo's got plenty of time to go. We've seen Salem, who spent a bit of time in the middle, now going back to half-back again. Jaden has obviously been a half-back, out of form at the moment and struggling a bit at Casey, but he's a candidate for there. And, not devaluing the half-back, but I would have thought it's one of the easier positions to fill in comparison to, say, as I say, key defenders or key forwards, or even potentially small forwards. You're playing behind the ball, so it's a bit easier to read. So not too fussed about it. Interesting discussion to have. Apparently Oscar Baker's spending quite a bit of time at half-back in Casey. and looks like a likely prospect. I haven't seen him play, but by all reports, Harrison Petty, who is a key position player, looks to have the goods. So that it's another name in the mix there. So not stressed about it at this stage. It could well be that Jones goes back there
to play a Vince type role or a Hodgie type role. In the back line, yeah. I wanted Drunken on this week, but he couldn't due to work commitments because he sort of outlined what he thought. Hunt isn't in form at the moment, but obviously we have seen what he is capable of doing at AFL level. Wagner can play the half-back role strongly too when he's up and about. And don't forget, he's only in his third year. Joel Smith has been killed with injuries, but yesterday started to, and that was about the Casey game, yesterday started to play some much better footy. I think he could do the Lewis Vince role pretty well with the added bonus of fantastic aerial skills. He then went on to say...
and look, his brother Declan's also backman of the key position variety, so he's also in the mix there.
He said that Dion Johnston's been trialled down back at the moment, but unfortunately it looks like he may not ever get to AFL standard. Oscar Baker has been super impressive and very versatile, can play half-back, wing, half-forward, which could be very useful in the AFL. Petty has shown some good signs as a key defender, which is probably the hardest role to fill in the game, and it's hard for Drunken not to be biased with Kelty, but if he strings together a few good games over the next month, he too will be in contention for AFL selection. So, look, it's still got a ways to go, a few of these guys, but, I don't think Lewis and Vince are going anywhere yet, but it's just an interesting thing to look at what we've got coming up for the back line, because we've got two big names that probably will start to wind down their careers going into 2019. So...
interested to see Joel Smith and what he's got to offer. Lots of promise there. As Drunken said, been sort of cruel by injury to date, but apparently very good in the air and good in other ways too. So, lot to offer there. And of course, Frosty is also going around in the twos, so he's another key position player.
Well, I think he's back up as he's there as spare parts back up at the moment as well.
Yep.
You would think. I like him. He does some good things, and it's good. We've got a little bit of depth, so it's a good thing. If you do want to join the show before we wind up, we've got a couple more topics I just want to touch on. 0390163666, or you can Skype Demonland31. We love to hear from Demonlanders. Of course, we've got the chat room, demonland.com/podcast. If you've got anything you want to say, and we'll read it on the air. The 2018 Indigenous Guernsey was released this week. Have you had a look at it? What are you thinking?
Somebody broke the embargo, actually, and released it ahead of time.
Was there an embargo? I don't know. I started a thread. I saw the D's had a sneak peek on their thing. Someone, I can't remember who, said, well, I Googled 2018 Indigenous Guernsey, and this photo came up, and it had a link to the Demon Shop. That was a broken link because they'd obviously uploaded it to the internet and not made it live, but Google caches everything that gets, his big brother is watching, and they cache everything, which means it was there, that could be seen that way. So it was there, it was on the internet. I don't know, I showed Demonland an early look.
Did you get a cease and desist letter from the... No.
I don't, who knows. Look, if the club would have contacted me, I would have taken it down. Look, it's different. It's not like I stole the image from them or someone leaked it to me. It was there on the internet.
What if they decide to punish us by not providing guests in the
Look,
future?
if they do that, well, don't, no need to be petty. Come on. I'm happy. Look, I've always said in the club, I've spoken to people at the club, if any time they want something taken down, I'll take it down. Club comes first in my eyes, but this was on the internet. It was already there. Someone posted it, so... It's not for me to police things. I'm happy, for club. If you are listening, you want something taken down, contact me. I'm very easy to work with in that sense, and we'll get it down. But I certainly wouldn't release sensitive information. It's still promotion for the club and the brand, and the sponsors get up there. So anyway, I'll take anything down you want me to take down. But anyway, that was the. What did you think of the Indigenous Guernsey? That's what we're here to talk about. I think it was Jeffy's auntie who did the design. Look, I saw people complaining about it, but I don't see there's anything wrong with it.
No,
not complaining about it, but saying it's not as good as last year's.
Auntie means something a bit different in the Indigenous world
than
what we understand it to mean in our family structure. Kinship arrangements are quite complex in the Indigenous world. So you can have many aunts and uncles who aren't necessarily
blood related
in the same way that we understand it to be. But that's neither here nor there. I don't mind it. I actually agree, though, with others. I really loved last year's jumper. I thought the design was a little bit better. Not to say I don't like this year's, but I did prefer last year's, and I actually would prefer if we wore the same jumper at least for a few years and just give it a bit of continuity. I understand look, there's a commercial factor in redesigning it every year, and people buying a fresh new Guernsey each year, but I think it'd also be nice to have a bit of, as I say, continuity with it. But I'm just looking at it now. Yeah, I don't mind it. But not as good as the 2017 version.
What do you think of a few people were also criticising the fact that there are so many jumpers over the year? We've got the Anzac jumper, we've got the away Guernsey, we've got the Indigenous round Guernsey. We're having later in the year, I think, when we play Freo, a special 160th celebration Guernsey with people's names on it. And are there too many Guernseys throughout the year?
Absolutely, 100%. There's so many Guernseys that the one we wear the least is our normal jumper.
Yeah.
So, I don't like that. And I understand... again, there's a commercial element to it. There's all these different jumpers to buy. You got the disco version and the main version, and as you say, the Anzac and the Indigenous. Are we wearing a pink jersey again? Are we doing the BCNA breast cancer pink lady game? I don't know. So, I just hope that if they are doing a 160th anniversary jumper, that it's not the one with the laces on the front that break Robbie Flower fingers, because that's no good. So in answer to your question, yes, far too many Guernseys and far too many rounds that are thrown over to social issues. I don't have a problem with Indigenous round at all, and Anzac is obviously something, but I think this round is the country round, isn't it? Country versus city or something?
No, I thought it was retro round.
Oh, it could be both. And look, that's just, do we need to recognise the country? Fair income. It's just absurd. Too much. Absolute overkill. And AFL pushing too far into social issues, which it needs to concentrate on footy and getting consistency into tribunal decisions and umpiring decisions, rather than trying to fix the world with a special round every second week.
I'd just like to point out that the thoughts and comments of Great Viney are not necessarily the thoughts of Demonland Incorporated. Now, I saw on the official site and on the AFL.com today there was a post about the most iconic numbers from each club, and the little blurb they had about Melbourne only mentioned jumper 11 based solely on, not solely, but on Jimmy Steins, and now Maxi Gawn and what he's done in that number. And they sort of, in that little blurb, they made mention that they both started in number 37. But I think there's a couple of other iconic numbers for the Ds. Certainly, there's a few other iconic numbers. Certainly number 2 and number 31. But I guess, for 31, for the new generation of D's fans, 31 might not be such a well-known number for them. What's your most iconic number?
Well, this is what happens when you get sports footy journalists who are barely out of high school and don't have an appreciation for the history of the game. Because as iconic as 11 is, and, Jimmy is a huge figure in the history of the game, Barassi is obviously one of the all-time greats of football, and 31 absolutely is an iconic Melbourne number. You and I, we didn't see Ron play. We started going to the footy at the time that he began coaching. But, I remember when you played footy as a junior and I played, and your brother and my brother, we all wore 31. If we couldn't get 31, we wore 2, obviously for Robbie. So I would have thought 31 and 2 are the first 2 cabs off the rank. Some don't like 31 because they say, well, Ron left to go to Carlton.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit churlish.
I thought you were going to say because of Scully.
Well, yeah, that's an issue too. I guess he's tainted it somewhat. 16 was my favourite number growing up because I liked Adrian Batterston, but I don't know whether too many people would consider him to be an icon of the club. So, look, I noticed, your social media accounts are still Demonland 31.
Yep.
So for me, it's 31 and 2, and then a bit of daylight to the next, which is probably 11.
And once a few people on that thread on Demonland where we were discussing this mentioned that once Clarry wins his 3rd Brownlow medal, that's number 13 with him and Djakovic and Uze will be the iconic number. But we've got a few years and a lot of water under the bridge to go through until that happens. Anything else, Mr. Great Viney, before we wrap things up? Anything that caught your attention this week? Anything you want to bring up? Floor is yours. What made you angry?
Sorry?
What's made you angry this week, besides the many Guernseys that we've forced to wear during the year?
Did you watch MasterChef? Has that been on already?
I didn't watch it. Was on tonight, starring Jonesy. Look, there were a few people on Demonland today who were saying, why put these guys on the thing? First of all, I think it was filmed in October last year. They say, why detract from their footy playing? I think it's a good thing. I mean, if you can get our mugs and our jumper and our sponsors, and mind you, it was a jumper with our old sponsor on it, but having been filmed in October, there's nothing you can do about that. But it's exposure for the club. I can't. Anytime we can get exposure to a wider community, that's not a bad thing. People complain about us having to play in the Northern Territory twice a year, and success will sort of go a long way of not having to do those things. But anytime we can get our mug and our sponsors logos on TV is got to be a good thing, whether you like reality TV or you don't. I think it's a good thing.
I agree, and I also liked Moonshadow's comment on this a little while ago when he said, just be careful that George Columbaris, doesn't lose his shit and punch one of our players in the guts. He's a small, angry man. He's got a history of aggro, and he might make a good inside mid. So I thought that was a good take.
Is he a Carlton supporter as well? For
George
some reason, he
Columbaris,
just seems like a Carlton supporter to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Could well be, absolutely.
That was on tonight. I'm not sure how many of our players were on there, or I know Jonesy was. I don't know if they were cooking or just judging, or they were the contestants might have been cooking for some of the players. I don't know. So maybe we'll find out some more on Demonland about that. But my point stands. Anytime we can get our mug on TV, and well done to the whichever department, the marketing department or whatever, that got them a big, that thing on. I think it's one of the highest rating shows during the year. So the more people seeing the D's, the better.
The Dalai Lama has been on MasterChef, so if you've got a problem with it, take it up with His Holiness.
Yeah. All right, so back at the G this week, not a home game for us, but it is one of the reciprocal home games. So your membership, does everyone's membership get you into the game this week? Yep. So if you're a D's member, get down, support us. Carlton won last week, so their bandwagon supporters will be back out there, and they're always loud. Let's get out there and cheer for the D's. It's another game we've got to put in the bank. I'm looking forward to it, and let's hope we get a big win over these mongrels, because I can't stand them. And
Couldn't agree more.
All right, with that, we'll play out our beautiful Come On Demons music. Thank you, Great Viney, for taking time out of your vacation to chat with us. And we will be back same time, same place next week. If you are listening to this via a podcast, come join us live. We'll take your calls, and you can chat with us live during the broadcast. Thank you for all the people in the chat room. We'll see you next week. Go Demons.
Go Days.